It's not often that a toy line is designed specifically to destroy itself, but today we're going to be talking about a line that was made precisely for that purpose. I mean, sort of. Created by Tyco and released somewhere around 1991, the Incredible Crash Test Dummies were made to fall apart, but there's an interesting story as to how these figures came to be, and today on Rewind Toys, we're going to tell you all about it. So yes, the Incredible Crash Test Dummies were first released by Tyco Toys in the early 90s, and that first line ran until 1994. And I'm sure a lot of you who were like kids in the 90s remember these fondly, but the question is, do you know where they came from? Well, to tell that story, we have to go all the way back to 1985. In 1985, the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, or the NHTSA, along with the Ad Council, came up with a clever new idea to help convince people to wear their seatbelts. These ads would star two sarcastic dummies named Vince and Larry, who would get into these insane car wrecks that would, not do great things to actual living people. After that, they would then utter their famous public service slogan,
"You could learn a lot from a dummy. Buckle your safety belt."
And that would be that. I mean, those were the commercials. This campaign became one of the most successful ad council initiatives in history, and it would significantly raise seatbelt usage across the United States, and it would also turn the dummies Vince and Larry into big stars. So popular were these two that even little kids started to kind of pay attention to them. See, they thought they were funny, and because kids liked them, that caught the attention of toy companies. Look, anytime a kid's into something, toy companies they're gonna pay attention. They're gonna catch notice. It's just the way it is. Now, one of those toy companies was Tyco. Tyco liked the idea of the dummy team, and they saw potential in cars that would crash into things, which is a little weird, but I also kind of get it. Tyco had an idea, and with that idea, they got to work. See, they wanted vehicles and figures that featured detachable spring-loaded parts that would burst apart upon impact. You could then snap them back together and do it all again. The original line was designed by David McDonald and Jim Byrne, and these figures were designed as fun versions of those original PSA stars, Vince and Larry. And in fact, the first line was actually called Vince and Larry, the Crash Test Dummies. But then something happened. See, the NHTSA decided they were going to pull their support after that first line had already been released. They started having fears, and rightly so. I mean, they started worrying that the toys would make the idea of crashing seem fun to kids, and that was sort of opposite of their designed intention. The first line, Vince and Larry the Crash Test Dummies, had 6 figures. There were Larry, who had 2 versions, Vince, Daryl, Pit Stop, Skid the Kid, and Spare Tire. There were also 2 animals, Hubcat and Bumper. It also featured 4 vehicles: the Crash Car, the Crash Cab, the Student Driver Stunt Car, the Crash Chopper, and the Crash Plane. Last, there were 2 playsets, the Impact Zone and the Crash and Bash Chair. So it was after the NHTSA pulled away from Tyco that Tyco decided they needed to kind of rebrand, and they changed the name to the Incredible Crash Test Dummies. They would also rename the starring duo to Slick and Spin. But Slick and Spin were not the only dummies. No, we got an entire family, including pets. Now, these figures had internal rubber bands and spring-loaded limbs that would comically fly apart when you pushed a button that was located on their chest. So let's talk about the first run, or the second run, but the first of the Incredible. We're just going to tell you the other toys they released. Of course, there were Slick and Spin. There was also Axel, Junkman, Chip, Dent, and Bull. As far as vehicles, we had the flip-over truck and the crash cycle. We then had the Pro-Tech suit figures. There was Slick, 2 versions of Spin, Spare Tire, Chip, Daryl, Bull, and Dash. There was also the Junkyard playset. Now later we would get what they called the Racing Team, and that came with Chip and Dent and the Jackknife Racer. That came a little later though. Now sales for the toys were good. So in 1993, they decided, hey, we need a television special. A half-hour computer-animated television special called The Incredible Crash Dummies was produced and aired on Fox Kids. It centered on the adventures of Slick, Spin, and a dummy named Ted, who was picked to use a new, indestructible torso. The problem was Ted's head was mixed up with an evil dummy's head, and thus Junkman was born. The special was eventually released on video and sold the Ted action figure and a second recolored version of Junkman. But an animated series and toys, that wasn't enough. No, there was a Harvey comic, and there was, of course, a video game. Created by LJN and released on the Super Nintendo Entertainment Center, the NES, and the Sega Genesis, these games received horrible reviews. LJN was kind of known for rushing games to the market. Now, I personally have never played these. Maybe you have. If they suck, let us know in the comments. Hey guys, why don't you do me a favor and crash into that subscribe button? I'm sorry for that. Actually, if you have like a second, if you could press subscribe, that would be great. And also, if you don't mind that thumbs up, give us a little like. That would also be great. I love having you guys here. I hope you keep coming back. Please hit subscribe. Let's get on with the show. So maybe you're asking yourself, what caused this line to crash and burn? See what I did there? Well, in 1992, media outlets began running stories about the toys, asking if they were glorifying the idea of car wrecks and destruction. They kind of were. Also, the toys had small parts, these pieces of metal and plastic. Now, in their defense, none of these news outlets could find any reports to public safety officials regarding actual complaints, but it did generate fear and worry amongst parents. It's a bummer, really, because this line was in the top 10 selling toys for that year, but what are you gonna do? Tyco did release the racing line we talked about after that, but the toys were becoming expensive to produce, and popularity was declining, and before you knew it, this line was junked. So in 1998, Mattel actually bought Tyco, and when they did, they integrated the Crash Test Dummies into their Hot Wheels line. In 2003, they introduced a new cast of characters. There was Crash, Splice, Crunch, Gyro, Papa, and Flex. They also gave us new vehicles and playsets. There was the Cycle, the Crash Cannon, and the Crack Ups. They also tried to introduce a new series of animated shorts, but they just didn't stick, and this line just didn't last very long. So I have the question, did any of you play with the Incredible Crash Test Dummies? Do we have avid collectors out there? I mean, I know there are. I've seen them out there. I know people think very fondly, but do we have any here watching the show? Let me know in the comments. Let me know your thoughts overall on the Crash Test Dummies. Also, before we go, please be paying attention over the next few days. We're going to be dropping a question out there regarding an upcoming episode that I'm currently working on, and I really need and want your input. We also have a Facebook group as well as an Instagram. They're probably, I'm pointing up, so I'm hoping they're up there somewhere. I'll also drop links in the notes for you guys. So you can feel free to go to either of those places to give your feedback as well. Anyway, I thank you for joining us here again on Rewind Toys. I hope you had a lot of fun, and I hope you come back to play next week. But remember, when it comes to collecting weird, exploding toys, the hunt is still half the fun.